Thank you, Madam Contest Master. How many of you have or have had a 17-year-old boy in your household or your family? Did you ever get them to listen to anything you said? Did you ever get any kind of noise or response out of them besides a grunt? I think 17-year-old boys are really focused on the 3 G's. Girls, guitars, and video games. I mean, what on earth could we learn from a 17-year-old boy? Well, tonight, my fellow Toastmasters, welcome guests, and esteemed judges, I'm going to answer that question for you. I'm going to share a story about a group of young men who taught me some wonderful life lessons. It was Friday night, December the 1st, 2006, on a cold, frosty night in Thomasville, Georgia. My son's high school football team, the St. Pius X Golden Lions, were playing the Thomas County Central Yellow Jackets in the state high school quarterfinals. Win this game, and you go to the semifinals in the Georgia Dome. The goal of every high school football player in Georgia is to get to the Dome. Now, as parents, we were just happy that our kids were in the playoffs. You see, St. Pius had been on a long downslide in terms of their football program. Year after year of losing season after season. But a few years prior to that, they hired a new coach. And he turned that program around and had us deep into the playoffs and the quarterfinals. Now, we weren't big, we weren't fast, but we were smart and we were hardworking. Now, Thomas County Central, the Yellow Jackets, big, fast, athletic. They had not lost a home playoff game in 20 years. So, the complete opposite, right, of St. Pius. We win the coin toss, we receive the kickoff, and we march right down the field and score. Are you kidding? We're up 7-0. You could see the parents. They started thinking, oh my gosh, could we do the impossible? Could we beat the Yellow Jackets? Well, we kick off the Thomas County Central, and we see their offense. And they had this running back, this big, fast kid that was just taking huge gashes out of our defensive line. He was so big and so fast, I was sure Herschel Walker was inside that uniform. They score 7-7. We get the ball back. We fumble. They score again. They score again. We fumble. They score again. Halftime, we're down 28-7. You could hear the parents in the stands. Oh, well, we had a pretty good season. You could hear Mom, well, that Coach Standard, he's done wonders with those boys. You could hear this one dad, man, what a way to end your high school football career. I mean, we knew defeat. We'd seen defeat. And I was sure that the second half was going to be U-G-L-Y, ugly. And then something very interesting happened. Second half starts, our boys charge out on the field, and they stop Thomas County Central. We get the ball back, we move down the field, and we score. It's 28-14. And then the surprise play, the surprise onside kick. We recover. We get it. We go down and score. And now we claw our way back to 28-21. We stop their running game again. And believe it or not, at the end of the fourth quarter, we score one more time, and it is now tied 28-28. The kid that looked like Herschel is now ordinary and frustrated. The parents that were talking about that long loser drive back to Atlanta, they're now planning a victory dinner at Waffle House. Game regulation ends 28-28. Coin toss for overtime. We win. We take the ball in and score. It is now 35-28. St. Pius. What a stunning turnaround of events. Now, how did this happen? I think 2 things. First, in that locker room, the boys and the coaches, they made some changes. They made some adjustments. They stopped running the plays that weren't working, and they started running the plays that did work. Now think about that in our personal life or at work. Are you still running the same old plays and getting the same results that you don't like? You got the bad habits you can't get rid of? Are you stuck in a rut? Let's think about this. Let's take a time out. Let's assess our situation, and let's change our strategy. Let's change our tactics. We need to realize now that what used to work in the past no longer works in the future. So there we were. Now, second thing that those boys learned. listening to their parents at home apparently had been listening to those coaches all season long. They were listening to persistence and hard work and never giving up and playing every play to the last end of the play. They knew every team was bigger and faster. They knew the only way to win was to outwork the other teams. They became convinced that with persistence and hard work, they would be able to beat the more talented teams. Now let's look at ourselves again. You know, many of us have become kind of jaded. We've all had our fair share of disappointments, right? I mean, how many of you are listening more to that negative voice in the back of your head than the positive voice that's in the back of your head? How many of us have stopped dreaming that big dream? Have you become convinced that the people and the companies that are always going to win are the ones with more talent and more money and resources? Back to overtime. We're up 35-28. It's now time for Thomas County Central. That quarterback keeps feeding that kid the ball, 5 plays, touchdown, and now it's 35-34. Coach has got to make a decision. Does he kick the extra point and go to overtime? Or does he go for 2 and win the game right there? Easy decision, right? You kick the ball, you go to overtime. He knew something we didn't know. He knew that his players were out of gas. We had ground his players all the way in that second half, and he knew that if he kicked the extra point and went to the second overtime, his team had nothing left to spend. He had to go for 2 and win or lose right there. So both stands, us in those cold metal bleachers on the visitor side, the other stands screaming and shouting at the top of our lungs. The quarterback takes that ball, hands it to that kid. He leaps up into the cold black night. And bam! Our star linebacker slams him back on the ground for a loss. St. Pius wins 35-34. We go running out onto the field in a huge scrum. I'm looking for my son, and there he is. Helmet up like this. Tears in his eyes. And he says, "Dad, we're going to the dome." And I stood there with tears in my eyes and said, "What do you know? Maybe you can learn something from a 17-year-old boy." Madam Contest Master.